presents Shannox.
The Flamewalkers are among the most feared guardians of the Firelands. Shannox is no exception. I mean, come on.
He's got an eye patch.
Serving as the chief hunter and kennel master of Ragnaros' hellhounds, Shannox patrols the elemental realm with his two most ferocious beasts,
Riplim and Rageface.
armed with a spear, two pets, and an eye patch. Shannox is the ultimate huntard.
The ultimate huntard, Shannox. He is one of the first bosses you will meet in the Firelands as long as you kill enough trash. Aethric, why don't we throw it to you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about this huntard?
All right, this huntard, aside from wielding an eye patch, in 10 man difficulty, you're looking at about 24 million health, 25 man, somewhere around 82 million. He's accompanied by two dogs, Rageface and Riplim. They each have on 9.6 million health on 10 man, 33 million on 25 man. And it's unknown right now whether he has a hard enrage timer, but the final phase of this fight does have a soft enrage mechanic, being that he gradually increases attack power and speed, so it's all a matter of what you can heal through until you kill him.
Right.
For 10 man, you're looking for 2 tanks, 3 healers, and 5 DPS. 25 man, you're going to want 2 tanks, 6 or 7 healers, and 16 or 17 DPS. The overview of the fight is it's a single phase encounter during which you will not only face Shannox himself, but his 2 pets. And just a warning now, he will become enraged and do additional damage and attack faster when one of his pets are killed. Either one, doesn't matter. And because of the specifics of their enrage mechanics, you'll want to kill Rageface and Riplim first and just survive his enrage. One thing to note for your tank is that he is immune to taunt.
And so are the dogs, basically.
Yes. So whoever they hit first is going to be their focus for the rest of the fight.
Right.
Shannox has a melee attack which hits for about 26,000 damage in 10 man, 54,000 in 25 man, and it occurs roughly every 2 seconds. And during the fight, he's going to be throwing out traps just left and right. And by the time we downed him, there was just traps everywhere. You got your standard issue immolation trap, which is going to do a massive amount of fire damage. You're looking at probably 60k over 3 seconds. And also increases the damage taken by its target by 40% for 9 seconds.
Right.
However, it's not AoE, so it's only going to affect the person or the ad dog who triggers it. Right. He's got a crystal prison trap, which is kind of like the hunter's ice trap. If a player gets trapped in it, the DPS is going to have to deal 700,000 damage to the trap to get him out.
And it won't actually do any damage to the player that's trapped, but you still want to get him out because you have to DPS down these things pretty hard.
Right.
So
they have pretty huge health pools. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And Shannox will do his arcing slash every 10 to 15 seconds, which is basically just a cleave in a wide cone area in front of him. And when he hits this, the jagged tear debuff will be placed on the main aggro target. It's a bleed that ticks for about 3,000 physical damage every 30 seconds and can stack up to 30 times.
Yeah, it can be kind of crazy.
All right, and he's also going to hurl his spear every once in a while, as hunters like to use projectiles, I guess. The spear is going to deal physical damage to enemies within 3 yards of the location for about 50,000 fire damage.
Yeah. Big damage.
Yeah, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And after Shannox throws his spear, he's going to send one of the dogs after it.
Right. And that's going to be Riplim pretty much every time. Well, every time.
Right. Okay, so now they got Magma Rapture, I'm sorry. After Riplim is killed, Shannox performs an ability similar to hurl the spear. He no longer throws the spear at a target location, but instead he drives it into the ground, inflicting 50,000 fire damage and increasing fire damage taken by all players by 40% for 1 minute.
and it does stack and all that kind of fun stuff. Now, okay, as we said, Rip Limb is immune to taunt. Rage Face cannot be tanked, so he just kind of runs around biting people, and when he enrages, it hurts a lot. Let's talk strategy, and first let's talk about these traps real quick. The traps, he throws out 2 types of traps. One's fire, one's crystal prison. They both take 2 seconds to activate. They both look a little bit different. The immolation trap looks like a flame, and the crystal prison trap is purpley crystal. Go figure. Do not step in these traps. Do not.
As tempting as it may be.
It is just way too painful. And I know I've stepped in a couple of those. I'm sorry about that, guys.
I was actually guilty of that, where I was like, come on, Rage Face, follow me through the trap. You know what? I'm going to test it out first to make sure it works before I drag you through it, and was killed immediately.
It hurts. But Colt, you actually gave me the strat that worked for our team. So why don't I just toss it over to you, and you can run us through it.
So we have a strat here for Shannox that is actually different than some other websites. This is a nice,
which is great.
Yeah, it's a nice, clean, and effective strat that's actually worked really well for us. So I'm going to go through it. I'm going to break it up in little segments. I'm going to first focus on the best part of any raid, the DPS, of course. So we'll start with the DPS. So at the beginning of this fight, DPS, your primary focus is going to be Rage Face. Your job is to burn him down. Now, Rage Face is the one that cannot be tanked. He's just going to be running around randomly, and he will focus on a particular target at any one time. So if he focuses on you and he starts beating on you, do what you can to try and drag him through an immolation trap. Again, don't step through it first to make sure if it works. Just try to go around it and drag him through it.
Right.
So
right. And
go ahead.
And just a note for healers. Sorry, if you see anybody being targeted by Rage Face, keep an extra special eye out for these guys because they can be taking some big hits. So, all right, go ahead, Colt.
So basically, DPS, your focus is on Rage Face. You want to burn him down as quickly as you can. If you accidentally, if he trips a Crystal Prison trap, which means he's actually going to trap himself, go ahead and switch DPS to Shannox while you're waiting, because there's no point. You just got to sit there and wait anyway. So go ahead and switch to Shannox. Right. Eventually, Rage Face will break himself out. I keep wanting to call him Rage Fist. That's his true name. But well,
his true name.
We'll email
Rage
Liz about
Fist.
that. And then, by the way, melee DPS, because Rage Face is running around all over the place, just stay on Shannox. There's no point. You're going to be just chasing him around. There's going to be more chance for you yourself to hit an immolation trap or a crystal prison. So melee, unless you're really melee heavy, just stay on Shannox and let the range just try and burn down Rage Face as quickly as you can.
Right.
For tanks, at the top of the fight, main tank, grab Shannox. Off tank, you're going to grab Rip Limb. You want to drag these two about 50 to 60 yards apart. And the way we did it, too, is we had the DPS essentially in the middle. So tanks, you guys are out on the edges. Now, drag Rip Limb far, far away, but not too far away. You don't want to get out of the way of the healers. So make sure there's some communication going. But basically, the idea here is that when Rip Limb runs back to Shannox, he must travel a great distance. Because basically, you've got this dot that's cast on you that's stacking. The longer that you're not engaged, I'm speaking to the tanks, by Rip Limb, that dot will fall off. So the greater time it takes for Rip Limb to run back to Shannox, the more time you have for that dot to fall off. So, as the off tank, if you're off tanking Rip Limb, drag him through the crystal prisons, because you want him to get frozen, so that gives you time for your dot to go away. So also, too, if you DPS, if you see Rip Limb running back to Shannox, Hunters, this is your time to throw down a Frost Trap. Mages is your time to cast a slow. Any kind of way to slow Rip Limb down from getting back to Shannox, that's very encouraged. So that's what the tanks are doing for, again, this first phase. Healers, good luck. Just heal as much as you can. In particular, as Zug said earlier, whoever Rage Face is targeting at that time. Otherwise, he's just running around randomly blasting somebody. Now, DPS, back to you. Once Rage Face is down, once you've killed him and he burned him down, Shannox himself is going to get a buff to his damage. So this is a time for the tank, whoever's tanking Shannox, to pop a cooldown.
That is very important.
Yes.
Because of the way that it's split up, there's only going to be 2 healers that are going to be in range of the main tank on that one. So not everybody can focus heal on the tank. So you got to blow your CDs at that point.
Right. Because you're just going to get a huge burst of damage. It's going to happen quick. It's going to happen fast. So healers be ready and tanks be ready with your cooldowns. Once Rage Fist is down, then you're going to have your top 2 DPS switch to Rip Limb and put the rest of the DPS on Shannox. Now, what you want to do here is that once Shannox hits about 35% health, sometimes 40, but usually around 35% health, stop DPS on Shannox and help finish off Rip Limb. The idea here is that you do not, as they were saying earlier, you do not want to get Shannox below 30% health while Rip Limb is still alive. If that happens, the dog's going to enrage and he'll essentially just wipe the group. So once Shannox hits 35% health, stop DPS. Don't DPS him anymore. Switch to Rip Limb. Start blasting down Rip Limb. If you've only got like maybe 1 or maybe 2 melee DPS, you can still lightly DPS Shannox, but just be careful. Do not let him cross that 30% threshold.
Yeah, and what we did was we did basically that same strat on our team, but we had all of our range go onto Rip Limb. Basically the same thing. At one point, we had to make an adjustment. We pulled one guy off onto Shannox and then back over to finish everything off. But basically that strat worked for us as well. So might be something that you want to try out on your next visit to the Firelands.
That's great. And then once Rip Limb is down, that'll enter the final phase. He'll essentially start to enrage. That's when you pop Bloodlust and just burn Shannox to the ground. And it's going to be kind of a soft enrage because that little AoE flame thing he does is going to cause more and more damage as the fight goes on. So this is the time to really just burn him to the ground.
And it works like Chimeron, right? I mean, it's whoever has the aggro, that's who he's going to stay on until they're dead. And so, and then he'll move on to the next target. It's kind of like that Chimeron fight, except for you can actually heal in this part. But you really need to do solid DPS, just burn everything and get him down.
Great fight. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And Solar, did you say that you tried this as well?
I actually didn't. I've spent all my Firelands time on Beth Talak, so Shannox is a no-go right now.
Well, we'll get to Beth Talak maybe next show. Who knows? We'll see what's going on. And interesting fights. Eighth, any other thoughts on the fight of Shannox?
Nothing to add to strategy or any of that, but I will say that it is a very fun fight. It's so far my favorite of the new tier.
Yeah, it's really pretty cool, and I like the fact that you can't taunt them, and so they're just kind of running all over the place. It's all based on damage and aggro, and you can't just easily taunt them off of their target. You have to do something else.
There's
watch your feet.
Yeah.
Watch your feet. Bring your camera in if it's way back, and if it's way in, pull back maybe just a touch and point it down towards your feet.
Absolutely.
You don't want to be taking any accidental damage on that stuff.